We are a global university. We have a global vision. We recruit students and faculty from around the world. We give them opportunities to learn how to be effective in many cross-cultural settings. And we do this by creating a very diverse environment in NUS. And when people from outside look at the university community, what they see are very rigorously educated individuals who do well in their work.
But you know, there are so many universities that are catching up today, and we need to look for a differentiating factor.
We must have strong heart. We must go beyond just merely academic excellence.
Not what the university does and does well, but what the university stands for.
And that is the passion of the community, students, faculty, staff, and alumni, the spirit of the explorer. Somebody who is mentally curious, who has got initiative, resourcefulness, willing to break new ground, which requires boldness, and yet is somebody who is prepared to do something different, to make a contribution.
NUS needs to be seen as an organization that is the nurturing ground for people with great passion and the will to go out there and make a difference to their society. And that's what underscores U Alive, university that's alive.
Where we have members of the NUS community share their passion and their commitment and their contributions in many diverse fields.
To share their achievements, to share what they have gone through in their life with the student and the graduate community.
Could have been a student. He or she could have been or is a teacher, a faculty, could even be an employee, a staff member, or most importantly, an alumni.
Individuals who have committed themselves to do very interesting and different things in many varied aspects and dimensions of sports, arts, culture, community service, academic work. And what distinguishes them is a great passion that they bring to their work.
The speaker speak for 10 minutes about not so much what he does, but why he does it. What sort of trials and tribulations has he faced? Why does he believe in this? And after that, there will be a question and answer, an interview, a fairly tough interview. Following that, there will be a live question and answer session with an audience comprising about 100 people. U Alive will be in 3 different dimensions. One, in the auditorium, right, in front of a live audience. While that's going on, it will be carried live via webcam to the student population on campus, right? And the students can actually interact live while they're watching it. The third dimension is we're going to be pumping it to linked websites to more than 200 universities, some of the top universities in the world.
There's another very important dimension to U Alive, and that is it's mainly driven by our alumni.
The whole idea is to provoke thought, ignite that latent flame that I believe strongly exists in each one of us.
There are many things in life that will catch your eyes, but few will catch your heart. And only when you pursue something that you are passionate about can you achieve greater heights.
And to make even more distinctive contributions to the society we live in and to the wider world beyond.
U Alive will epitomize that.
Passion,
action,
inspiration.
As a child, he was a self-proclaimed science geek and inspired by science fiction to explore science fact. Today, he spearheads cutting-edge research in the field of mixed reality. He is NUS Professor Adrian Cheok, and he's mad about science. We scratch beneath the surface to discover the passion that drives him. the search for the ultimate interface of high-tech and the human experience, combining technology, art and creativity to improve the quality of life.
At the heart of it, I like to invent new things, and I think that's it's kind of a driver, you know, because it's fun to do. It's fun to make new things, but not for fun's sake. What can we do to benefit society? That's ultimately should be the goal and can really bring satisfaction.
Ladies and gentlemen, Adrian Cheok.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. As you know, my name is Adrian Cheok, and this is my Twitter account. And in the spirit of our new open age, this is my phone number too, so you can even call or text me. But please don't email me, because I've decided email is impossible now. I get too many thousands of them. Okay, first I'm going to speak just a little bit about what I've been doing here at NUS in the past 10 years or so. I have a lab called Mixed Reality Lab, and basically mixed reality is the transition from the real world, which we live in, to the virtual world, which we also know because we play computer games and things. And in between, we have augmented reality, which is where we merge the virtual world into the real world. And augmented virtuality is where we put the real world into the virtual world in real time. So about 10 years ago, I wanted to do some research in this area. And actually, I was kind of at the right place at the right time. The DSTA, which is a defense science agency here in Singapore, they wanted me to do a project on augmented reality for soldiers to find their way in the battlefield. And it was a nice project. But when I was doing that project and it was finished, I thought, wow, with all this equipment that and things that I've made, what else can we do with this augmented reality and wearable computers? And I remembered when I was a young boy, I played Pac-Man, and I really enjoyed it. And at that time, there was no such thing as Wii and Kinect that we have now, where people have to move their body. And a lot of parents were saying, I don't like my kids to play a video game, they just sit in the bedroom all day, they don't move their body. So I thought, can we make a new kind of video game where we play in the real world and merge the physical world together with the virtual world? Mixed reality games. And so this is a human Pac-Man. You can see this is actually in NUS, the students wearing wearable computers. And as they move their body, they are actually the Pac-Man or Pac-Girl and ghosts, and they play the Pac-Man in the streets. And so they have to physically walk and collect all the cookies, and you know, their friends who are the ghosts are chasing them. But people can play from anywhere in the world because they can see the virtual environment. So for example, you could tell your friend, oh, your ghost is around the corner, so you better run to the next block. And so it promotes a collaboration between the real world and the virtual world. That was about 10 years ago. And 10 years later, you can do this on your mobile phone. So this is actually a real free application that you can run on your iPhone. And so you can see basically it's the very similar idea to human Pac-Man. 10 years later, it's really happening in the commercial world. And I started to think that maybe this is not only for young people to play, but this could be a new kind of communication, because play is a kind of communication between people. And I thought that now we have, because of technology and because of the exponential increase of technology, generation gaps are increasing. And we might say, yes, okay, in 20 years' time, grandparents will know how to do email and things. But then 20 years later, the young people will be doing something else. And because we have exponential increase, there will, I think, more and more gap between the generations. So can we use mixed reality entertainment to bridge the gaps together? And so one of my students, PhD students, he just finished his project called Age Invaders, where we made a system where grandparents and grandchildren can play mixed reality games together. And then parents who are maybe at work or at the office can join in through the virtual world. And this promotes intergenerational entertainment. So I've been looking at, in general, after that I thought mixed reality is not just about computer graphics. I think it is about the merging of all of our senses with the virtual world. And I think that's going to be the future of not only mixed reality, but communication. And I think right now we're living in the age of information. We basically have unlimited information, and we can access anything, anytime. So what's going to be the next step? I think it will be the age of experience communication. We want to communicate not just information to each other, but communicate our presence and our real experience. So I started thinking about all of our senses. First of all, I started thinking about touch. Touch is so important for human communication. And in fact, now there's so much studies showing that even, for example, babies who are not touched can actually suffer a lot medically because it is so important. This is the first project I did with touch, and it was called Poultry Internet. And basically, you could hug your pet chicken through the internet. You hug a doll, you know, when you're at the office, and then the chicken will feel the hugging on his or her body. And the next stage of this was to make a system for parent and child communication. So, for example, a mother can be working, or a father, or on a business trip, and then missing the child, and you can hug the child by hugging a doll, and then the child will feel the hugging on her body. Okay, and even for children, now children are starting to use social networks because it's become very important. But what about if you combine social networks with touch? So for example, this system here is where children can have a small robot called Petimo, and you can send a hug. They can send hugs to each other by squeezing the robot. Again, using touch. But not just, I think in general, touch is important because physical is important. Although we live in the new age of virtual reality, our brains have not changed in the last 100 years. We're still physical beings. And I don't think we're going to overcome that for quite a while. So physical is so important. So for example, if you send an email to someone, the value of email has become basically zero now because the cost is almost zero. But if you send a card to someone, they will feel some warmth from that you've sent this card. So for example, still we find beauty. You can see in the top there, this kind of paper art. In Chinese, they have paper cutting. Very few people, though, can cut this art. So now one of my students is working on a project where we'll be able to have automatically cut paper. So you could, for example, design a beautiful paper art for your grandmother and send it to her. Or she just puts the paper on the table and you just transmit the message. But you get a different feeling when it's physical. Even liquid, we've been looking at liquid interfaces now. Because, for example, imagine when you're a child and you used to enjoy just throwing a pebble into the water. And you have why do we feel that's enjoyable? I'm not sure, actually. But I think we need to think about new kinds of interface, including now we're looking at liquid, where we can control liquids to be controlled with computers and internet. I think the next frontier, which we've started to look at, is also smell and taste. So I have a few of my PhD students now looking at how can we transmit smell and taste through the internet. So we're doing things, for example, where you could cook through the internet. For example, grandmother could be in Singapore and the granddaughter studying in New York, but they could cook a dish together. Or what about if your grandmother, passes away, then you could virtually cook with your grandmother the same dish that you used to enjoy when she was alive. And dining together when we're in different places in the world. You know, if you think about it, when you normally meet your friends, what do you normally do? You normally maybe go out and have a dinner together or have a lunch together. Somehow eating together is very important. So can we share this experience through the internet? Now we can't, but now we're making systems where you'll be able to feel like you're eating food together with another person. And the next stage is to turn this into digital communication. So because right now to communicate by smell and taste, we have to use chemicals, which is, we can't transmit chemicals through wires, through the internet. So now we're looking at how, for example, could we digitally actuate taste? And for example, you can send a sweet taste to your girlfriend and she'll feel lovely. Or maybe you get a bitter taste on your tongue from your wife and you know you're in trouble. So here's some of the initial experiments. So as I make a point to be the first test subject, so in case I don't make my students. So this is one of the first tests we did in the lab. And now we can actually actuate just by electric current, sour, bitter, and sweet. But there's still a long way to go. This is still in the lab. And I'm actually working with a professor in our medical school, Professor Gopal. He's an anatomist. And the final frontier of this work, I think, will be be able to send a smell. And to do that, we're looking at, can we actuate the neurons in the brain using magnetic resonance? Sorry, I've only got 1 minute. So now that's basically what we're doing. Now I'm going to very quickly, in 1 minute, okay, I'm going to talk about what I'm thinking about for the future. I think one thing through doing all this research is I've been thinking that communication is very important, but I think it's not, more and more now we're finding it's not just a desire, but actually a need. If you think about it, before civilization, if a baby was left and not touched, it would die. So I think communication is much more than desire. It's actually a fundamental need, like eating and drinking. And actually, in the neuroscience, now they are beginning to develop new models of the mind. Now the understanding is almost everything, even every decision we make is affected by social aspects. So now the model of the mind is a social mind, rather than in the 70s we think our mind is like a computer. So this is very important because now we've reached a new stage of society which is constantly connected. In the 20th century, we kind of reached the industrial age. And I think 21st century, because of internet, we'll reach the revolution where we have total connectivity, 24 hours a day. And this is kind of going back to a natural state. As I mentioned, our mind is a social mind. And if you look at the ancient societies like ancient Athens, they also knew what everyone was doing all the time. And we are reaching that. And often people say that's in the, this is Asian countries are more oriented to doing things as a group. But if you look at it, I think it's a basic trait of humanity. So now, even in America, the average American teenager now sends about 5,000 messages a month. And if you calculate that and you take some time for sleeping, that's about every 5 minutes. So it means basically we are addicted to communication. How will this change? I think I just want to briefly mention I think it's going to make a very big change in the way we do education. Because if you think about the internet generation, those who are under 10 now, they grew up for the first time completely immersed in communication with internet, unlimited videos, right? We've never had such a society. So for them, learning is playing because when they grow up with video games, that's how they learn. And learning the way that we learn through books is so boring and also irrelevant to the way they've grown up. And also there's been some studies now, the reference at the top there. Children 20 years ago, children said school was the most important place, in their lives. But now they don't say that because school is just a meeting place for continuing their online communications. Also, now there's been some studies showing that the internet generation really can multitask. So when you see the teenager at home and doing homework and watching YouTube and chatting to 10 friends at the same time, and we think, oh, can't you concentrate? But actually, their minds have developed from age 0 with this kind of communication. So they're developing skills to multitask. They might be losing some other skills as well. We don't know yet. The answer's not there. But the kind of skills like they expect everything to be non-linear, collaborative, active. And so schools will change. And not only schools, universities too. Here we are in NUS. And the old method of, the professor giving some information to the student, that is slowly becoming completely irrelevant. Because soon in your pocket, you'll be able to have every bit of information, every video, every song in your pocket. What is the point? So I think but I still think universities will be relevant, but it's going to radically change. And again, if you look at the early universities like Oxford, Cambridge in the 1600s, they didn't have any classes. It's just the professors and the students chatting together, philosophizing, and that's the real value of, in the new age. Again, we go back to that physical interaction. I just want to end quickly here. What's the end point of this? Well, now this book is just coming out. So Michael Koros is saying that in the future we'll be able to directly plug into our brain somehow, maybe using light communication with our neurons, or somehow. But the point is that his thesis is that people have a very deep desire for intimacy and communication. So if we can plug into each other like a human internet, he thinks we will, and that might happen. This series is they said is supposed to inspire the young people. So I just want to end with 2 slides. I think don't be inspired by me. See what just be 100 times or 1,000 times better than me. That's my advice to the young students here. But I just want to give you three things which I think gave me motivation. Before I came to NUS, I worked in Japan in Mitsubishi Electric, and I realized that they have a very strong hard work attitude. You can see there. Okay, that's an extreme. But the point is that the success, you cannot really have success without the hard work. There's no easy way. So hard work is one. 2, another thing I noticed in Japan, they have a very strong desire for perfection. This in the middle is a kind of bowl they make for ceremonies. And that's actually made by hand. And I've seen these guys sitting there, and it might take 3 or 4 months by hand to make that. And it is so perfectly straight, it's like a computer making it. Now you might say, sure, I can make this in Shenzhen for $5, right? And it'll be almost exactly the same. But somehow, the guy sitting there for 3 months making it, that drive for perfection is very important. But also Japanese people believe we never will reach perfection. So don't ever think we can, just try to strive. Also serendipity counts. So for the young people, try to meet as many people as possible. Leverage. When you meet people, talk to them and build up your contacts. That's still so important for success, because what we've found is that in the internet, if you can become a hub, a social hub, your value increases. And finally, I want to say, be a bit crazy, okay? This is actually, last year someone wrote an article about me on TechCrunch, and they decided to use this picture. This is supposed to be me, okay? Okay? And so it says here, he's a wacky mad scientist, okay? But the thing is that from that article, I think I got so many contacts, and people said, can you come to New York? We want you to consult for our company, and this whatever, right? So to make a very good idea, yes, try to think of the most crazy idea. I tell my students to think of the most crazy idea and to shock me, all right? Don't try to do what I did. Shock me, all right? And I think that's very important, because now now in Singapore, I know this is going out to the whole world, but in Singapore, we have no resources. All we have is the human brains. And so making things is not going to make money for us anymore. So we have to think very creatively and come up with new industries. So being creative is very, very important. And part of that is thinking really wacky and crazy ideas. So I hope all the young people here can really be the next stage of our future. Thank you.
Hey, Edwin.
Good to see
Hi,
you.
good to see you again. I'm quite fascinated by what you're trying to achieve. It sounds to me that you're trying to justify your existence to a large extent. Now, I don't know, I don't quite buy the idea of internet sensing.
how are you going to replicate having dinner with your wife? I mean, you have a wife. Even suggesting that to my wife, I'd probably be sleeping on the sofa for the rest of my life. I mean, let's get real here. You know, how on earth are you going to be able to replicate the whole human emotions of having lunch or dinner or candlelight dinner with your wife? I mean, it sounds fascinating, right? But can you replicate emotions? Can you replicate those things that we're talking about?
We're still in the early stage, and I think one irony of the internet age. So we've had a real revolution. Now we can communicate with anyone in the world, 24 hours a day, instantly. And if you just think, even 50 years ago, making an international phone call was a big deal, right? And then 100 years before that, telegraph. And just a little bit before that, it will take 2 months to send a letter to, from New York to New Delhi or something, right? So in a very rapid time, we've gone through a revolution of communication. So we've expanded social network dramatically on a global scale. But the irony of this is that physically we're becoming more and more apart.
Yeah.
So, now, for example, my parents are in Australia. My wife currently is in Tokyo, right? And I'm here. So even I want to have dinner tonight, we can't. So I think that's why, that's why the internet, as it is now, is not enough. Because even if you send an email or Skype or etc., exactly the point, you don't feel you are together.
So you can't replicate it.
Now we can't, because the real emotional communication, we don't understand it, but it's a lot to do with the physical surroundings, with the context. Even we have a plate of spaghetti together. Just that sharing context is causing some communication. So I think what we have to go to the next stage is experience communication through internet. So if you have a friend who's in Paris, they want to share a glass of wine and a cheese with you. Right now you can take 1,000 photos of the cheese, but still you can't understand the taste of it. So we have to be able to communicate with all of our senses. I think that we still don't know how can we feel emotionally connected, but one thing that we can say is that by the present internet is not enough. So we have to look at all of our senses for communication.
So I mean, I'm asking this question partly to provoke you, but also because I am concerned about this, because we also don't want this to become too convenient an excuse for people to compromise on the touch and feel aspects of life. I mean, I'm seeing it happen in my house. We live in a 3-story house. My wife is quite lazy. She's not here, so I can say it. She could be watching, yeah. Well, she's at a meeting right now, so. She SMSes me from the 3rd floor to say, Han, could you bring this thing up, And we have gotten used to SMSing each other at home. No, it's funny, but it's a bit scary. You know what I'm saying? You can actually get used to it. And when you get used to it, you can actually get used to not actually having to talk to each other. Doctors today don't touch you. I mean, not that I've been wanting to get touched by my doctor, but you know what I mean? When we were young, you go to the doctor. What's the first thing the doctor does? The doctor holds your wrist, checks your pulse, checks your neck. Today, he shoves all sorts of gadgets into your ear and stuff like that. But, the whole touch and feel it's not there anymore. And I'm concerned about this. So, honestly, technology is a great thing, but I think we need to explain what this technology is meant for, the way you just did. Right? Because it is not to compromise or replicate reality, but it is to enhance a cyber relationship, isn't it? But it's not to bring human relationships 1 or 2 notches down, which is what could happen. So, let me ask you this question. You're a scientist, like many other scientists, a great scientist, a fascinating work you're doing, right? What's your responsibility?
It's a very tough
No,
question.
what's your responsibility? Because you can't say, I just create how people use the creation is not my pasal. It was not my responsibility. I'm sorry, I don't buy that. What's your responsibility?
Well, I think first of all, about the importance of touch and other sense. I think we will never. I think it'll be a very long time before we overcome that. And actually, now the more we are studying the brain, not me personally. I'm not a neuroscientist, but I have friends who are. And now we can do quite accurate imaging using magnetic imaging of the brain and other things. And now we're realizing that the brain is not just here. It is actually like internet. It is connected to your whole body.
Yeah.
So there's no real difference between the nerve sensor on your finger and a neuron in your brain. It's completely all connected. So we are no longer thinking about the mind as separate from the body. And now, even from a scientific level, we're thinking about embodied mind. Right? And I think this is actually very interesting development, because for many years in the Western culture, a lot of the philosophy was about separating mind and body. Whereas I think in a lot of Asian culture, with the concept of yin and yang or something like this, we always thought it was together. Right? And now we are again realizing that mind and body are one. So I think it will be a very long time. I think it would be a very long time before we feel that we are effectively communicating to each other, like you said, by sending SMS or sending an email. I think until we physically meet, that we can't really feel like we know each other. So what that means is that the importance of physically being together will increase a lot, because we'll crave the authentic experience. So now...
But as a scientist, what do you think you can do to make sure we don't end up going the wrong way? Because, I don't think we should ever stop pushing the boundaries in science. I don't think we should ever do. That's not what I'm suggesting, right? I don't think any of us wants that. But as we move, we shouldn't lose a sense of ourselves. Now, what is it that the scientific community, what is it that you, as a professor, who has influence over other people, can do?
I think we just have to, we always want to make, or I personally want to make inventions which have a positive effect for society. But any new media, any new invention can have a positive and negative effect. And I think the only way is to help guide the discussion. For example, the Huggy Pajama, many people, often I give a talk and then someone will say, that will actually make parents to work longer and not come home because they can virtually hug their child. And that could happen. That really could happen. But I think those kind of parents were probably didn't really want to be home anyway.
You shared with me earlier that you had this lady from. You want to share that story?
Yes. So, but then the other, on the other side, I would receive some emails. So, for example, a father, it was in UK, said, "Can I buy this system, Huggy Pajama, because my daughter is in the intensive care unit. So I can only see her through the glass window, and I want to hug her." And I received another email from, I think, a very young girl. I don't know how old, but must have been under 10. She goes, "My father is in prison." All right? So she can't, even if she wants to hug her father, she can't. So people will find, I think people have a very biological and also emotional need for communication. So I think that will be if we can make ways for people to communicate, I think on average it'll be positive. Yes, surely even the printing press, when it was invented, the church wanted to burn them all because it was dangerous. People read books, So definitely there's going to be good and bad in any new invention.
So if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that scientists can actually, through illustrations, by giving examples of how this particular invention can be used, can in some way influence the way it will be used, right? For example, right now you shared these two stories of how this could be used. I'm sure it will influence the way we might want to consider using it. But scientists, would you agree, cannot step back and say this is just an invention, how you use it is up to you?
I think, yeah, I'm sorry to say, but I think this labeling is 20th century. Right? In the 20th century, it was industrial age, so we had to specialize. So all the, professions and academic disciplines became narrower, narrower, narrower. You know, I'm not just a scientist, but I'm a plant scientist or something. And even within plant science, I didn't know about leaves.
Getting more niche.
Right? But we reached the limit of that kind of knowledge. So now we can basically make anything using technology that we can think of. But what are the real pressing problems? For example, environmental issues. Now we know it's a connected system, but no one discipline can solve this problem.
Right.
So what you're seeing now, I think 21st century is those barriers are rapidly breaking down.
Right.
So there cannot be just people who say, I'm a scientist. You have to be a scientist, and you also have to be very interested in politics, involved in society.
In the environment. Yeah.
You know, yesterday I was called an artist, right? In another forum, okay? So the thing is that I think 21st century is we can only solve problems by collaboration.
Sure.
And so those barriers naturally will break down. We can't have this 20th century thinking that I'm a scientist or I'm an engineer, so I don't care about those things.
That's fair. You know, and that's probably a good time for us to open the questions to the floor. It can be a question, a comment, but not a speech. Right? First person, anyone? Yeah, please. Please identify yourself. You don't have to give your IC number.
Sure. My name is Asif, and I'm currently doing my master's in electrical engineering at NUS. My thought was, have you ever thought of applying your work to telemedicine? What if the doctor can actually feel the patient, sitting in some other country or some other continent also? Have you ever thought of about it?
Interesting.
Good question. Yes, and I have not only thought about it, but actually we are collaborating with about 2 or 3 professors in the medical school, and on different aspects. Some is visualization. So, for example, scanning a real human body, and then, so for example, there could be some person in a developing world, maybe someone, and then scan all their body, but there's no expert in that particular type of medicine. So then send a full 3D scan in real time to another part of the world where a doctor can analyze and then give advice. And the next stage of this, of course, is the using telemedicine. So basically using robots and haptics to simulate the surgeon's hand. In fact, that is happening already. If you go to, I think, if you go to the NUH here, or I think it's called NUHS now, and you do brain surgery, often now the brain surgeon doesn't use his or her real hands because the robot is better. So although he or she might not be in a different country, but even in the same room, still using robot. So it's only one small step to think that brain surgeon could be in Los Angeles and doing the brain operation on the person in Singapore. So already it is happening. And I think we're getting to the point where really we're going to see a symbiosis between man and computer and machine. So a lot of the very, very delicate operations, robot will be better. And we might not even need the surgeon in the future. You just program the robot to do the operation. Yeah.
Well, Minkin, you are a doctor. Do you like that idea?
Well, actually,
being replaced by robots?
For maybe about 15 years, fighting for the U.S. Army. They've actually successfully done operations in the European theater all the way from Waterloo.
Yeah.
That's actually reality already.
So U.S. Army has, he's talking about the U.S. Army for about 15 years, have been experimenting with this idea of, which is probably why the U.S. Army is in the state it is. Right. Okay, can we have the next question or comment, please? Anyone? Come on, guys. Yeah, please.
So my name is Zeng Zhan, and from NUS. So with such advancement of technology, what is a role of religion and ethnics to prevent people going the wrong directions? How do you think about that?
To prevent what?
To prevent going the wrong direction, yes. So what's the role of religion and ethnics or morals? Yeah.
Well, I think that this is a very deep question, and I really appreciate it. And what we're actually doing a project now in my lab called Confucius Computer, okay? Because a lot of the young people have lost touch with the traditional culture, traditional philosophy. But if you ask a 10-year-old now to read all the Confucius Analects, I think they will not want to. It must be so boring to them. So what we did is we made a system where we modeled Confucius as a virtual Confucius, virtual philosopher. And so the young people can send a message, do instant messaging, or send a Twitter message, and then Confucius will reply to them. And this way they can learn about Confucius philosophy, but in the way that they like to do, in the interactive way, in the way of playing and entertainment. So basically we've learned, I think human society and human culture doesn't become less important in the new internet society. I think it's becoming more important because what people are more and more realizing is that that the most important thing for their life is to feel connected to other people. And so I think, as I was just saying, 20th century was kind of industrial age. But, you've seen all those movie stars and very rich people and they, die in the hotel room, overdose on cocaine or something, right? So they actually weren't very happy, right? Even though they had all the money that they could possibly want. So now what we're realizing is you have happiness is not really through the riches in terms of material wealth. Yes, it does bring some happiness to some extent, but the real long-lasting value is relationships, is communication, and that's what is a deep need. And I think spirituality, religion of whatever sort is a way of not to feel lonely, to feel you're communicating. So everyone will have their different style and different religion and different way. Okay, but I think in my mind the basic point of spirituality is to feel connected to society, and I think that will become more and more, just not less important, but more important now that we've reached the connected age.
I can't help noticing a certain, concern in the eyes, on the expressions of the faces of the older folk in this auditorium. And it's very interesting sitting here watching, because I think this whole divide is a psychological thing as well. It enhances a sense of despondency. You talked about the divide earlier, but I think it is quite real. It's not just a physical thing about not being able to use the computer. It's a psychological thing about feeling left out. First of all, when you talk to people today, they are using there's so much of jargon around that if you can't catch up with the jargon, you actually can't catch up with the conversation of the train of thought. That's what we're talking about. But what I'm hearing you say is quite interesting. What you're saying is the whole concept of communication has evolved, and you can't possibly turn the clock back. Isn't that what you're saying? The whole concept, the way in which we communicate has actually evolved significantly. So just because we don't talk to each other, just because we don't touch each other today, doesn't mean that we are not connecting. We are connecting. Maybe the young people are connecting, through SMS, by tweeting, in as effective a way as we have been doing by touching and feeling and listening to each other's voice naturally. Is that what you're saying?
Actually, I think what we're finding is because of we never had the ability to constantly communicate before. I mean, even I remember when I was in school, high school, and my mother would say, okay, 8 o'clock, no more TV, and go to your room, study, and you're not allowed to have any more telephone calls. So literally, my parent could cut me off from the world. But that's almost impossible now, because now the young people are doing homework with their computer. So you can have MSN and Skype and watch a YouTube video, listen to any radio station in the world. So what we found is that instead of less communication, I think I personally feel it's the opposite danger. We've never had the opportunity as humanity to have unlimited communication. So, you know, if you think about most of humankind, you know, on a time scale, we're in small communities of 20 to 30 people, you know, tribes. And it's only very recently that, you know, cities and civilization, you know, 2,000 years is a blip of human history. But more importantly, it's only in the last, say, 10 or 20 years where we've had the ability to have unlimited communication, and it's only going to increase. But what we're finding is that there's no limit to the people's desire. And I think, I've been thinking about this, as I mentioned in my talk, that I think it's because it's not just a desire. It's not like, you know, I want to have this computer, I like this pair of shoes, so I'd like to have them. I think it's actually a need, like drinking and eating, because from a biological point of view, if we couldn't communicate, we would die, you know, as babies, if you think about, you know, 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago. So I think it's a fundamental need. So whatever communication technologies we're putting out there, people have no ability to stop it. So if you, for example, go to a buffet, you know, in a hotel, buffet lunch, buffet dinner, eventually you'll feel full, right? Because we have internal mechanisms to say, okay, we ate enough. But I think our brain has never had to evolve mechanism to know there's too much communication. So in fact, I think what we're finding is the opposite. We have to find a new way, because already now there's been a lot of studies that people can't do work because they're so addicted to checking their Facebook and Twitter all day long. And
it's amazing how you can do all of these things at the same time.
So the thing is that you can't, because our brain has not changed in the last 100 years. Biologically, it's impossible to change.
So you're telling me my daughter has been bluffing me?
So it may be in a small way that we can change, because, you know, when we're born, our neurons are forming in a small way, but basically, fundamentally, we can't in a short time, evolutionary. So what I think the real question is not that we will go to less communication, is the fact that we have no ability to stop communication because it is a fundamental need. And I think that we now have to find a new way of communication. So, you know, I think that, as I mentioned, we can't get over the fact that we really want to be physically together, right? So now I think there was a statistic that about 30% of American people meet online now. And incredibly, in China, it's almost the same, right? But when they meet online, I don't think anyone will get married never having met the person, right? They will go and have dinner together and meet each other, etc. So we have unlimited means to communicate, but the physical aspect still will be very, very important, very critical.
But you understand the concerns that are being expressed by some of us here. It's not, I don't think anyone really is saying, let's pull the brakes on innovation or technology. In fact, what you're doing is fascinating, and it probably will help a whole lot of people. But we're talking about the signals that we're sending to the world, to society, and really that's what we're saying. And how can we find a way to mitigate that, you know? And if you look at it, yes, it's empowering it's allowing a lot of communication, but at some point that communication needs to be filtered down to quality as well. It's not just quantity of communication. You know, for example, I know that many of my friends, when we were much younger, we loved to network, right? Hang out, go for parties, but you know, as you grow older, you really want to pull away from networking, and I hate small talk. You know, you go for this, I just hate going for this party because It's about small talk, right? Then you want to start going for quality, spend a lot more time with fewer people and communicate that way. So I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying people who are a little older should also not feel that there's no space in this. So my quick question to you is, what is it that your technology can do? Because you did mention the thing about the divide. What is it your technology can do for those who are less comfortable with the speed of evolution of technology? What's your answer to that?
Well, first of all, I think what you mentioned is just a function of age, which will not change. So,
yeah. You haven't got there yet.
No, I'm 39, so I'm getting there. Basically, the older we get, the more comfortable we get just with ourselves.
Yes.
You know, when you think about teenagers, they're obsessed. Okay, I've got to have these shoes.
As many things as possible.
But it's not about the shoes. It's because they want to feel they're part of the group. And as you get older, you feel more comfortable just being just with yourself. So I think even the young people here, when they're 40, they also will have the same feeling. That is a function of age. To your second question, well, kind of second question, you know, the events are changing very rapidly. I don't think, you know, just last week we saw what happened in Egypt. Okay, now I read a very interesting article that Egypt they actually shut off the internet.
Yep.
Right, and actually you can do it, right? And now they're investigating how did they shut down the internet. And the point is, all you have to do is shut down a few servers, and then you're cut off from the outside Egypt, okay? Yeah. But not just that. When you do, like, even for the inside Egypt, I don't want to get too technical, but the domain name servers and things are, you know, probably America or somewhere else.
Yes.
So you can't even access the local sites, right? So it is possible to. I think it is possible to, like you said, it is possible to go backwards, right? I mean, Egypt shut down the internet for one day or so, okay? And also China has, you know, the Great Firewall,
yes.
Right? And they can do it, okay? But I think in general, there's, there is, you know, there's the German word called Zeitgeist. Which I think is a very good word. It's not really good English explanation, but it's kind of like the culture or the era. So we are in the era that people, from the time they're born, are used to, you know, be able to communicate with anyone they want. So if yes, Egypt government could shut down the internet, but people were finding ways. You know, they were setting up satellite dishes,
yes,
or connecting by phone line, you know, the old way by modem to some European server, and still the messages were getting through. So I think it is maybe it's kind of unstoppable, because even though maybe the elder leaders thought, okay, I can shut down the internet, but you saw what happened last week. Eventually, this whole energy of the youth overcame that, you know. And I think that is the real issue. I think now we've almost got to the point of no return, because to really shut down the internet, you have to literally be there with guns now, because and you know, shoot people, all right? And so it's got to that point. Yes, of course you can do anything, but the level to shut down communication has become so high now that it's become almost unstoppable. Right. So I think we then have to think, what's going to be the next society where you can't hide anything? There's no more privacy anymore. You saw WikiLeaks, right? Julian Assange, all right? Yeah. So this could never happen 20 years ago or 30 years ago, right? So we have to get used to this society. Everything is open, and everyone can communicate with everyone.
Yeah. Now, I think we've got some very interesting questions from our in our cyber community coming in. Sorry, just 1 minute. Val, you want to?
Hey, okay. I've got some questions here.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Valerie. I'm the web moderator for today. Yeah. Okay, so we've got one interesting question from a student named Martin Gomez from the Philippines. He's from the Ateneo de Manila University. Okay, so his question is, this topic holds true for developed countries such as Singapore, but how do we address the issue of connectivity or even access and reach in the developing world where availability is rare or non-existent?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And, you know, Philippines is one of the highest users of SMS per capita in the world. So even in Philippines, they are highly connected. You know, maybe not everyone using a laptop, but just using a cell phone. So I think that these issues, because the pace of change is not linear. What we're finding is that the pace of change is exponential. So what we see now in happening in developed world very rapidly is so important for developing world. I'll give you some example. For example, people before in the African countries, people grow some commodity, right, like rice or wheat. They didn't know what is the price of that commodity. So that when the trader comes, they don't know how to deal. But now with just SMS, they can SMS to someone and find out, okay, this is the current price of wheat, right? And so this actually radically changed even the people living in the remote villages in developing countries. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to see a much faster rate of change than we've ever seen before. You know, I think we've seen what happened in China. You know, if you went to China in 1980, and you know, now it's just like another planet. But that took 30 years, and the next country to do that probably will take 20 years, and the next country will take 10 years, right? Because of the fact that ideas are going around the world so quickly. So developing world rapidly is not going to be divided with the developed world in terms of information and communication.
Val, are there other questions from the cyber community?
Yes. Do you want to go to a live question first?
Just ask one or two more.
I think that girl had a question too.
We just want to also just give us a minute. Just want to take some questions from the cyber community, one or two, and then we'll come to you.
Okay, this is more of a broad question. This question is, what benefits will digital humanity bring in the next 2 to 3 years? And what are the new exciting benefits that there are in the horizon? This comes from a username DVOJHM.
What benefits? Well, in the 2 to 3 years, okay.
Can you even predict that?
Yes. Yeah. You know, I think we can't even predict what's going to happen next month. You know, like, as we were just talking about Egypt. I mean, 1 month ago, Egypt was never in my mind. I'm just thinking pyramids and and pharaohs, right? And then suddenly you see this, wow, this amazing change happened because of, you know, someone made a Facebook page and then said, you know, hey, let's all get together. And it became an unstoppable cycle. This could never happen 20 years ago because, you know, the people just handing out leaflets in the street. You can never reach so many people in a short time. And I personally know, I have a friend, not he lives in Egypt, but he's a friend who is from Jordan. And he's a very heavy tweeter. Okay, so he very quickly set up a project where he would translate, because, you know, they shut down the internet. So he said, okay, the Egyptian people can call this number, and then I will tweet it, you know, in English and in Egyptian, right? So, so this could, you know, you would never predict this even 2 years ago, that the government, which had been strongly in power for 30 years, basically was brought down by, you know, a Facebook page, right? And social media. And so that is I think all we can say is that the amount of change we're going to see is going to be much faster than we're seeing now.
Would you say, Adrian, that you know, some of your innovations, cutting edge innovations in the area of transmission of sensory experiences could actually work in a situation like Egypt, if it's advanced enough, to sort of have an emotive effect on people, you know, by stimulating the emotions even further by transmitting those senses? Is that even possible?
No, I think that our emotional communication is very much to do with all of the senses.
Yeah.
So I think there's a difference between mass communication or very wide communication and or intimate communication.
Yes.
So I think always we have a deep need to be intimate with some people in our lives, right?
Yeah.
So, and in that case, you want to use all of the senses. So I don't need to. I mean, you know, we don't need to smell everyone in the world, but maybe I want to smell my daughter, right? Because, you know, or what is she eating, okay? Maybe that's very interesting for me as a father, okay? So it depends on the level of intimacy of the communication. But I think that
well, the concept
we
can
won't
actually
lose
be, I can imagine the concept being applied to sort of influence large groups of people through multiple sensory experiences. It is possible, although that's not your intention. Your intention is to motivate intimacy, for example, you know, to fulfill that intimacy requirement. But I can actually see how this could be done. I can also see the possibility of this being abused by certain governments to influence and shape perceptions in groups of people.
Could be the case. I mean,
can be done.
I have one PhD student now who's working on a way that you can match smell. So if we meet, I know what is your favorite smell, and my shirt will emit that smell to you, okay? So...
wow. Keep your distance, guy.
So yes, this is possible. I think we can affect people's mood by...
I can imagine intelligence
emotions.
agents, spies, using some of your contraptions. Never mind, let's not go there. Okay. Yeah. Can we have your question and then yours, please? Thanks. I think we have time for probably 3 more questions. That's it.
Good afternoon, Prof. Chok. I'm Sandra, undergraduate at NUS. Just earlier in the talk, you mentioned about how our senses are inherently connected to our brain, so they are all like same organ, essentially. But my question is really about like, what is the difference between the kinesthetic kind of computer you talk about, something that you interact physically with, versus you have electrodes in your brain? And what is the latest status in research in that area?
Oh, very good question, yeah, great. So our undergrads are so intelligent, I'm very happy. No, really, it's great. That's a very good question. I think that, yes, currently there is a big difference. You know, if we want to, for example, make the haptic technology and feel touch, now we need devices that will actually, you know, put pressure on your body or on the fingers or something. But there's been recent work to directly stimulate the nerve endings, for example, on your finger, just with electrodes. But the problem is that okay, again, I'm not a medical person, but from speaking to experts in anatomy, there's a very small threshold between touch and pain. So if you try to excite it with, say, some electrode on your finger, it's very difficult not to produce pain, which people, of course, don't want, okay? So currently, the only way to really produce touch is, you know, if I want to feel like I'm touching this cup here, then you need some device that really is physical. But in the future, you know, which is your very interesting question, this may change, and we don't have the answers. But that book that I put before, which is not my book, by the way, okay, so I'm not selling my book. That book which has just come out actually is writing about the actual technical possibilities of directly connecting our brain to internet. So it may be using some kind of chips which interface electric, you know, basic electric current to the, you know, chemical signals. Or another technique which he predicts is we actually grow cells which are, already we can grow cells which respond to light. I think there's been some experiments where they they genetically modify some mice, and some cells respond to light. So then they have the kind of, you know, optic fiber into the brain, and they can control, the mouse will just go left or right according to the signal. So, okay, I think it's going to take a long time, but I would say that it doesn't seem impossible anymore, that somehow we could connect our brain to the, you know, directly to internet. And people often think, the first thing they think, okay, like trivial things, like, okay, great, I can watch a I can watch YouTube in my head, you know, because I'm directly connected. Yes, there will be cases like that, and yes, it will be great to have Google Maps in your brain, right? So you can just know where you are all the time. But I think what will happen again, going back to before, people have a deep need for communication. So I think the first thing people will do is they say, yes, I want to be directly connected to my girlfriend or to my wife, right? And 24 hours a day, I know exactly, we share each other's thoughts. I think people, that's kind of scary, but I think people will want that.
I'm sure they'll grow up at some point and want to cut that down. No? But John, I think we should keep an eye on these mad scientists, you know? I mean, we don't know what they're doing in the labs, you know? We just need to keep an eye on you guys, you know, which way you're going. Yes, we'll come to you first. But before that, a quick last question from Cyber. Anyone? No? Okay. All right. And then we'll have yours as the last question.
It's not? Okay. My question is, how easy or how difficult has it been to sell your ideas? Because, I mean, if you talk about touch and smell being transmitted through the internet, it's not something that you'd even think was possible. And it's not just about having a good idea, but it's about convincing the right people to give you that support so that you can set that idea into motion. So how difficult has that been?
Well, I think that, you know, in terms of doing research, I think there's a few different goals, okay? So I think one important goal is that we want to, well, I want to, and I encourage my students to push the boundaries of knowledge, right? And so what I say to my students is try to push the barrier of the doable, right? So that's the exciting research. It's almost maybe doable. So, for example, if a student comes to me and says, I want to do research on time travel, I say, okay, I think that's not doable, right? Because maybe in 500 years, right? But you know, pushing the barrier of what is doable in the next few years, okay? And that, I think that's the important, one very important role of researchers is because, you know, like you said, there's not many companies in the world that would even think about this. But but if we can push the barriers, then and you know, some of those ideas can be breakthrough, but it might take 5, 10, 15, or 20 years. At the same time, and this is also more a function of my age. You know, I'm getting to 40 now, and I'm thinking, you know, I like to do something even right now for society. And so, for example, with doing projects, and I'll give you one example. In India, they have a big problem that in a lot of the government schools, especially in rural areas, any given day, 30% of the teachers don't turn up. And this can be for various reasons. And not only that, even the children don't turn up. But they've tried everything. They've tried logbooks. They've tried, monitoring devices. But it doesn't work because those teachers can't lose their job. So they don't care. So the company in India approached us and said, can you think of a playful way that we can get the teachers and the students to come to school rather than we monitor them, because it's not working. So we're thinking, like, you should probably saw in my presentation a small robot for children. I thought, we could make a very, very cheap version of this. And the children play a game with the teacher in the morning. And they don't know it, but we actually have a fingerprint sensor on there. And when they play the game, maybe some kind of, touching game with this robot, then the ID will be sent to the internet, right? And so someone in the control room can see, okay, all the children came to school today, or which teachers. So, but it's taking the research that we're doing now in the lab and thinking how to apply it right now. And I think we try to do both things. And I'm not sure how much time I've got, but a second very quick example is last year I was in Guangzhou attending a talk, and there's a project called the Library Project, and basically they go out to rural schools which have no books, And for not much money, $6,000 US, you know, some guys say, yeah, sure, I will give $6,000, and they will go and build a library there, and it's all full of books. And it just changes the lives of the kids. So I said to the guy, how can we help? You know, we're doing all this digital media stuff. He said, great, we can set up, you know, we can think of new digital literacy classrooms or libraries. You know, because now you can, you know, in India they manufacture a tablet PC for $30.
Yeah.
And then that could store 1,000 books. And so you could give every kid in the rural village in China one of these, and they have so many books to read. So this is taking the research that we're doing now and applying it right into the society.
Yeah.
So I think, so it's kind of both ways. We want to push the edge. What is the quantum step? What is pushing the barriers of knowledge? And at the same time, how can we use that to do some good in society? That's my personal aim.
This is really comforting. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that many of us would like to hear, because it's about how it's being applied. And that sets the stage for more such applications, you know. And a quick question and a quick answer, that's because we're running out of time. Yes, please.
My name's Tom, and I work in a startup here at NUS, and we combine physical robots and toys with smartphones, devices, and social networks, and the internet at large. So I want to hear your thoughts about where physical toys are going to be in about 10 years, because they are facing fierce competition from virtual games, social media, and the like. So where do you think they're going to go in about 7 to 10 years?
Oh, good. And your company sounds great, so I'm glad it's happening. I think that any technology doesn't replace the previous one. So, yes, of course, children are playing games on the computer, and now on, you know, iPhone, iPad. You know, I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I was just amazed. You know, she expects everything to be touchscreen now, right? Everything, because she's so used to iPhone and iPad, right? But still, she loves to play with her dolls, and we play Lego together, and you know, I don't know, some kind of marble game. So I think, again, going back to the main point, we can't change our humanity. You know, it took maybe 2 or 3 million years to evolve our bodies, you know, and it's going to take a long time to evolve. So we still love to play in the physical world. We are physical creatures. So if you can, I think the best thing is if you, as you said, if you can combine the interactive with the physical. Have you seen the film AI, the Steven Spielberg film? So you know the teddy bear robot, and I mean, if you can make that will, you know, that would be fantastic. Every kid in the world would want that, you know, like a living teddy bear, you know. So I think that really is the future. We are deeply embedded in the physical world, and children will still always play with physical toys.
All right, that's a wonderful way to end this discussion. It's called a soft landing, because we're talking about, at least we have the comfort that scientists are not forgetting the realities as we are moving into mixed realities, are not forgetting the importance of humanity and touch and feel aspects of humanity as we're moving forward. And it's very comforting to know that you believe strongly that we should retain that, you know, as we move forward. And I believe, and I hope, and I guess I believe that, we believe that what you said reflects the general sentiment of a vast majority of the members of the scientific community. On that note, I'd like to say a big thank you to you. Could we say a big thank you to you, please? So I would like to say on behalf of all of us, Adrian Chok, go forth and multiply. Right?
My students.
We've got something for you, Adrian. This is a little gift for you, a memento. Okay. We've got a picture of this interview live taken, and we've put it in there.
Time.
You think only you innovate? We do too, you know? And this is reality, okay?
Thank you very much.
Adrian, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And for each speaker, we want you to write something.
Okay.
Right? Something short, not a long story, yeah?
Right
okay.
now? Or?
Yeah, right now. Do you have a pen?
No, I don't.
No, there's a pen here. There's a pen here. Yeah. Just one line. How wonderful I was.
No, no. Okay, this is a message for the NUS students here. So
you want to read it?
Invent the future. Be crazy. That's all for you.
That was that. Well, we can adjourn to the foyer out there for a quick bite. And those of you who are interested in a short chat with Adrian, there's a seminar room. You can bring your food and drinks over there if you want, and you know, have a little bit more interaction with Adrian, right? So those of you who are interested, you can just come along. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, man.